Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Have you ever felt that pull between family and, wanting something more?
Mm-hmm.
That's what The Dressmakers of London is all about. A
Yeah.
historical fiction novel set during World War II. Don't
Yes.
forget to like and subscribe so you can join us on more of these deep dives.
And you can find the link to the book in the description, The Dressmakers of London on Amazon.
Okay, so we're introduced to two sisters, Sylvia and Izzie Shelton, whose lives have gone in completely different directions, especially after their father's death. Sylvia married Hugo, a surgeon lieutenant commander, to kind of get away from their family struggling with money and to escape the war.
Right away, we see how different their worlds are. Sylvia's at this fancy charity event talking about linens and sipping cocktails,
Oh, yeah.
and Izzy's carefully measuring out tea leaves to make tea.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a stark difference. It's interesting. Hugo seems to like that Sylvia comes from a more simple background, but I'm not sure if it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, like he says she's refreshing because she's not like the other women he knows.
Hmm.
It makes you think about their social classes, like maybe he sees her family as beneath him.
While Sylvia is navigating this high society world, Izzy's the one taking care of their family dress shop.
Mrs. Shelton's fashions.
Yes, she's so dedicated and is learning everything from her mother, Maggie. And as the war gets worse, she has to take on more responsibility at the shop.
It really struck me how an author uses those little details, like Izzy measuring the tea leaves,
Yeah.
to show just how much the war is affecting them. Even as simple things are hard to come by.
It really brings the story to life. And in all of this, Izzy's talent for design starts to come out. She's good, but there's tension with her mother, Maggie. Maggie doesn't seem to like Izzy's designs. They're too modern and bold for her.
It's like Maggie wants Izzy to be just like her,
Oh, yeah.
to follow in her footsteps instead of creating her own style. Makes you think about parents sometimes, how they want their kids to be like them instead of letting them be their own people.
That's such a good point. And then Maggie suddenly dies, and Sylvia comes home for the funeral.
Right.
It's a tense time. There's so much they haven't dealt with.
Losing a parent can make you face your past.
Absolutely.
And then there's Maggie's will. She left the shop to both daughters.
I know. Izzy's totally betrayed. After working so hard in the shop for years, she can't believe her mother wouldn't trust her to run it on her own.
Yeah.
Makes you think about Maggie's reasons.
And Sylvia, she wants nothing to do with the shop at first.
Right.
She's built a life away from it all. A life Hugo keeps telling her is better. But then something changes for her.
Yeah, she feels guilty, of course, but she also wants to connect with Izzy again.
Hmm.
And maybe she wants something more than her marriage, which is, well, not great.
It's interesting how they both end up back at the shop,
Yeah,
but for totally different reasons. The shop becomes like this center point for them, not just for their family, but for figuring out who they are.
absolutely. And then there's the war, making everything even more complicated. Seamstresses are leaving for the war effort. There's not enough fabric because of rationing. And then the utility clothing scheme comes in with all these rules about how clothes have to be made.
The utility clothing scheme is so interesting historically.
I know,
It
right?
was a real program here in Britain during the war,
Yeah.
all about saving resources and making clothes in a standard way. Limited fabrics, simpler designs, not much room to be creative.
It's amazing how people adapted, even with fashion. And the Shelton sisters, they're no different. Izzy starts altering uniforms for the other WAAFs, making them fit better and earning some extra money.
I love that she helps the other WAAFs. It shows how women were really supporting each other during the war.
Right.
They had new roles, new ways to help that they never had before.
Even with all the chaos and hardship, people find ways to connect.
Absolutely.
And Sylvia, she's got that entrepreneurial spirit.
Mm-hmm.
She starts making blackout curtains and even looks into tailoring uniforms, all while dealing with all the wartime rules.
I found that so interesting. It shows how Sylvia starts to see the potential of the shop. It's not just her family's past. It can actually be a real business that can change with the times. It makes you think sometimes a crisis can make people be really inventive in ways they never thought they could.
And then Sylvia finds something amazing, Izzy's secret sketchbooks, filled with all those bold, modern designs that Maggie tried to keep hidden.
Those sketchbooks are so important.
I know.
They show Izzy's real talent, the one her mother never really saw. And Sylvia, who's always loved beautiful things, she sees it right away.
It changes their relationship completely. Sylvia sees what Izzy can do in a way Maggie never did. And even though they're miles apart, it lays the groundwork for them to work together.
Makes you wonder what would have happened if Maggie had been more supportive of Izzy. Would Izzy's talent have blossomed sooner? It's a reminder to encourage talent, to let people be themselves, even when it's different from what we expect. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Dressmakers of London.
So we left off with Sylvia and Izzy kind of starting new chapters in their lives. It's so interesting to see how things play out for them, especially with the war still going on. Izzy really seems to be finding her place in the WAAFs.
She is, and it's in that setting that she finds love with Jack, an American GI stationed near her base.
Yeah, their connection is so sweet, and it's so nice to see that even during war, love can still bloom.
It really stressed me how Jack treats her. He respects her and genuinely cares for her. He sees Izzie for who she is, not just as Mrs. Shelton's daughter, which is how everyone else seems to see her.
It's true, he values her intelligence and talent. But while Izzie is finding love, things are falling apart for Sylvia and Hugo.
It's such a contrast, right? Izzie finds this escape from the war with Jack, while Sylvia's picture-perfect marriage is just a facade.
And then there's that scene where Sylvia finds those love letters from Hugo's mistress. It's just heartbreaking. It shows how empty their relationship really is and how he's been living this double life.
It's like that saying, all that glitters is not gold. On the surface, Sylvia has everything: wealth, status, a handsome husband, but none of it is real.
It makes you think about what really matters, especially in a time like war when everything is uncertain. But in the middle of all that heartache, Sylvia finds some comfort in William, the family solicitor.
William's a good guy, always there for both sisters, offering support and advice.
I love the scene where Sylvia confides in him about her relationship with her mother. It's like we see a new side of her, a vulnerable side.
It's definitely a turning point for Sylvia. She's finally letting someone in. You can tell William cares for her, though we don't really know if she feels the same way.
Their relationship is so subtle, full of unspoken things. It makes you wonder if sometimes the people who know us best are the ones who have been there all along.
That's a great point. So while Sylvia's dealing with all that, Izzie's been sending her those amazing designs from her WAAF posts.
And Sylvia sees how brilliant they are. She decides to feature them in a wartime fashion show.
Which is pretty bold considering all the restrictions of the utility clothing scheme.
It's true. That scheme was all about conserving resources. Limited fabrics, simple designs. Not exactly a fashion designer's dream.
But Sylvia finds a way, and Izzie's designs, they're perfect for it. Modern, practical. It's a chance for Izzie to finally break free from her mother's style and show off her own talent.
It's a big moment for both of them. But Izzie's struggling. She's torn between her love for Jack and the shop, her family legacy.
It's that classic dilemma: love or pattern. Jack wants a new life, a fresh start in America, away from the war. But the shop is more than just a business for Izzie.
It's her history, her connection to her mother, a way for her to be creative, and now it's connected to her relationship with Sylvia, which is so much better now.
And just as Izzie is thinking about all this, she finds out her WAAF unit is moving to a remote location.
Talk about bad time. It just highlights how uncertain everything is during war, you know. You never know when you'll be separated.
Back in London, things are coming to a head with Sylvia and Hugo. He's been neglecting her, cheating on her, and she's had enough.
She confronts him, and it's a powerful moment. She tells him she loves the shop, and she's going to make it a success. She's choosing her own life, not the one he wants her to have.
She's taking control. And during that confrontation, the truth about Hugo's affair finally comes out. He's been seeing Claire, their friend.
That dinner party with Claire was a disaster.
It's awful, but it's also a relief for Sylvia. She's free from his lies.
And she decides to divorce him, which was a really big deal back then. She's putting herself first.
It's amazing. So Izzie is back in London for the fashion show, and she sees how much Sylvia has changed. Sylvia has found something Izzie is still looking for.
Right, and while all this is happening, Izzie is still getting letters from Sylvia, filled with encouragement and support, something she didn't always get from her own mother.
It shows how Sylvia has matured. They really support each other now.
And of course, there's Jack. Their relationship keeps getting stronger, and he keeps talking about their future together in America.
But he wants Izzie to leave London and the shop.
Which is a hard choice. She loves him, but the shop means so much to her.
It's a tough decision. America offers a new beginning, a chance to escape the war. But the shop is her passion, her family.
Sylvia encourages her to follow her heart. She reminds Izzie that happiness is worth the risk, and that she deserves a love that doesn't make her give up her dreams.
Sylvia is really supportive, even though it might mean they'll be apart. Their relationship has come so far.
But just as Izzie's trying to figure things out, something happens that changes everything. Her friend Nancy, another WAAF, gets news that her fiancé has been killed in action.
It's a reminder of how dangerous war is, how easily things can change.
It makes Izzie think about her future with Jack, about how fragile everything is.
Meanwhile, Sylvia's focused on the fashion show. It's become more than just a business thing for her.
Yeah, it's about showing that even during war, creativity and beauty can still exist. And it's a tribute to Izzie.
Lady Winman sees how passionate Sylvia is, and she loves Izzie's designs. She offers to help, introduces Sylvia to important people in the fashion world.
It's a huge break for Mrs. Shelton's fashions. The shop that everyone thought was outdated is now seen as a source of new, innovative ideas.
The fashion show is a success. The press loves it. Buyers are interested.
Izzie's there, and she's amazed by how well her designs are received.
It's proof that she's talented, that she can succeed. But she still has to go back to the WAAFs, and she's still not sure about her future with Jack.
Their goodbye is so sad. They both have so much to figure out.
Jack wants her to come to America, but she's not ready to leave London, to leave the shop. She's torn between her love for Jack and her passion for design.
So last time on our deep dive into the Dressmakers of London, Sylvia had just left Hugo and was finding comfort back at the shop.
Yeah, a big decision, for sure.
It was. And she finds purpose there. She throws herself into the work with Miss Reed, getting ready for that fashion show. But you can still tell she's lonely, like in that scene where she and William are having a drink at the pub late at night.
That scene was so well written. We see a different Sylvia sharing things she normally wouldn't. She talks about her childhood, how hard it was, her relationship with her mother, why she left the shop all those years ago.
It's like she finally trusts someone enough to let them see the real her.
Exactly. And William's friendship really means something to her. He listens, he's there for her, and he gives her a different way of looking at things, which I think she needs.
And their conversation really makes you think about family, expectations and trying to find where you belong, things everyone deals with, not just during wartime.
You're right about that. So Sylvia's starting to find some peace, and then bam, Hugo shows up saying he's been reassigned to London.
I know, I was surprised by that, weren't you? What did you think about him coming back like that?
I was a bit surprised, yeah. It definitely complicates things. All that tension between them comes rushing back.
You could just feel it, right?
Oh, yeah. Hugo is furious about the shop. He thinks it's beneath her, a waste of time, tries to control her, tells her to quit. I think he can't stand seeing her doing well on her own.
That's when Sylvia really stands up for herself. She refuses to back down, tells him she loves the shop and she's going to make it succeed. She's done letting him control her life.
She's taking charge, and all that leads to Hugo finally admitting that he's been having an affair with Claire.
It all came out at that disastrous dinner party Claire put together.
It's a betrayal on top of everything else.
Awful. But at least Sylvia knows the truth now. She's free to move on. She decides to divorce him, which was a huge step for a woman back then. She's choosing her own happiness over what society expects of her.
Talk about inspiring. Meanwhile, Izzie's back with the WAAFs, writing to Sylvia about her life, sending her those amazing designs.
Their bond is so strong now. It's incredible how much their relationship has changed. Sylvia's letters are full of support and encouragement, things Izzie probably wished she'd gotten from their mother.
It shows how much Sylvia has grown. They really lean on each other now.
And then there's Izzie and Jack. Their romance just keeps blossoming. He talks about their future, being together in America.
But that would mean Izzie leaving London, leaving the shop.
And that's a huge decision for her. She loves Jack, but the shop is her family, her passion, her connection to Sylvia now.
It would be like starting a whole new life. America's so far away. London's home, even with the war going on.
Sylvia tells Izzie to follow her heart. She says happiness is worth the risk, and that Izzie deserves to be with someone who loves all of her, including her dreams.
Sylvia's amazing. She really wants Izzie to be happy, even if it means they'll be apart.
Then, just as Izzie's trying to decide, something terrible happens. Nancy, her friend from the WAAFs, finds out her fiancé was killed in action.
That's the reality of war right there.
It makes Izzie think about everything, her own future, her hopes for a life with Jack. It makes her realize how quickly things can change.
Back in London, Sylvia's putting everything into the fashion show. It's not just about business anymore.
It's about showing everyone that beauty and creativity can still thrive, even during war. It's a tribute to Izzie and her talent.
Lady Windman sees what they're doing and she wants to help. She introduces Sylvia to important people in the fashion industry.
It's a big break for Mrs. Shelton's fashions. The shop everyone dismissed is suddenly the place to be, full of fresh ideas.
And the fashion show is a hit. The press raves about it. There are buyers everywhere.
Izzie's back in London for the show, and seeing how much people love her designs is incredible.
It's proof that she can make it, that she has something special.
But she has to go back to the WAAFs, and saying goodbye to Jack is so hard. He wants her to choose America, but she's just not ready.
They both have big decisions to make.
Izzie goes back to her unit, but she takes that confidence with her, that knowledge that she can succeed. Sylvia's back at the shop, finally free from Hugo, embracing her role as a businesswoman, and her relationship with Izzie is stronger than ever.
Mrs. Shelton's fashions is doing great, and it's all thanks to the Shelton women. They've been through so much, but they came out on top.
What a story, right? From fancy parties to wartime duties, from secret sketches to figuring out who you are. What stayed with you from the Dressmakers of London? Was it Sylvia finding her own way, or Izzie embracing her talent? Tell us in the comments.
It's incredible how, even in the middle of war, people can find happiness and connection. It reminds you that sometimes the biggest discoveries are the ones we make about ourselves.
So well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Dressmakers of London. Subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive, and don't forget to share this with your friends who love a good book.